Hello and welcome to another 12 Days of Christmas in July. This is our second to last project and it's a real fun one. I decided to pull out some more Distress Oxides on Kraft because I really liked the way previous project turned out, and I thought I would show you another way that you can use this really cool combination together. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing we'll be doing is applying the Distress Oxide to the piece of Kraft cardstock, and this is from Lawn Fawn. And the stencil that I'm using is called Plaid, and it is from the Stamp Market. So what I've done is I've just applied some Post-it tape onto the back side of the piece of cardstock, and I'm just going to apply it to the stencil. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because I don't want to have to move magnets or anything around while I'm working, and I want to be covering the entire sheet with Distress Oxide. So now when I turn it over, I have a complete sheet here that I don't have to worry about moving anything around. I can just go ahead and add my Distress Oxide to blend it in. So I'm not even going to do any blending off. I'm just going to apply my ink straight away. And you can see that it just really takes the ink beautifully. So the nice thing about using the Distress Oxide is that this is going to dry pretty quick. I'm going to get some nice crisp lines, and once I set it aside, really it just needs a minute or two, and then it will be completely dry and ready for us to use. So the other cool thing about this technique is I have all this Distress Oxide now on the stencil. Now what I might do, and I won't show you in this video, but you might see it come up again, is take all of this extra ink that's on the on the stencil, and if I spritz it to activate it, then I can apply it to another piece of cardstock, and I'll end up with the opposite image, and it'll look really, really cool. All right, and so that's it. This just needs to get cleaned. And when I take this off, you're going to see a beautiful plaid panel. See all that ink on there? That'll look really awesome on another project. All right, so the next step will be to stamp the snowflakes and emboss them. We're using the Catherine Pooler Peaceful Flakes, and you saw this in a previous video, and I thought I'd show you how they pair really nicely with their dies. So I have, oops, let's grab that guy there. I have 5 of the snowflakes set up and a piece of the coordinating Kraft cardstock. And I'm using Alta News Antique Gold Pigment ink. And if you've seen me do this recently, then you know why I'm doing it. And it's because, I almost made a fatal mistake. Got to use some anti-static. That's a must. But I'm using the gold pigment ink because I'm going to emboss this in gold. And this will really help me with seeing that I've got good coverage going on here, which I don't at the moment. And it will allow the embossing powder to adhere right to it, just like Versamark would. So it does double duty for me. And then if I happen to miss any of it with the powder, I don't have to worry too much about it because I will be able to, it'll just be covered up by the stamp itself. So I don't quite know why this last piece here isn't, it's not working. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I have good impression, and I can pull in my embossing powder, and actually I don't have good impression. This corner just really is giving me fits. So now you've seen I've like inked this 5 times. And the good thing about it is that I've got perfect placement every time. So if you don't have a stamp positioner yet, this is a great reason to get one. Okay. Got that all on there now. So I can go ahead and use my gold embossing. And if you happen to notice the containers that I use, these are something that I found at TJ Maxx, and it turns out that they're the same exact ones that Christina Warner uses. I really love them because even though the powder can be staticky, it doesn't stick to the sides of the container even though the container's plastic. They're super awesome and I love them. I just use them for all of my frequently used colors, so gold, silver, copper, black, white, etc. All right, now that that is done, I will be able to just heat these up and we'll go off and do some die cutting. All right, so the last step on these is to do some die cutting. And of course these dies work perfectly. I really like this one in particular because it has the dots in it to make sure that you get everything aligned just right. You should see the little gold dots poking through. So that's really a nice feature of that particular one. The rest of them are designed such that you can see the whole thing. Okay. And I will use tape even on these little ones, especially on these little ones. Alright, so I'll go ahead and cut these out and we'll be right back. Alright, so see how easily those went through the machine. Come on. There we go. So 5 little snowflakes ready to go. All I need to do now is the last bit of stamping. You can see I've got my sentiment right on the card base. And our card base here is completely dry. It looks fantastic. You can tell that it was handmade. It's got some light spots in it, and that's just fine. So the first thing I'm going to do is some just dry fitting. And I like to just take the sentiment and pop it where I think it's going to go. And then get everything else kind of in place. And these guys are going to go kind of like so. So it looks pretty good. And at this point, just so that I don't even forget, I'm going to go ahead and glue these snowflakes down. It's not going to make a difference when I go to do my stamping. Alright, so that's going to go in there just like so. So get it in my positioner here and get that right in place. And I'm using, of course, my favorite, my VersaFine Clair in Nocturne. I wanted a nice crisp black so that the sentiment really stands out. And that looks really awesome. All right. So the last step is to just do some assembly. All right, so for the assembly, I have 2 pieces of the scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive. These are the 8.5 by 11 sheets, and I just have them cut down. I'm going to use that for both adhering the mirror card and the final panel to the card base, because I want to avoid any kind of smearing or smudging that I might get if I use regular liquid adhesive or even tape runner. If any of that gets overrun onto the mirror card, it's just it never ends well, and it's not really easy to repair, if possible at all. So what I do is I cut down my sheets here so that they're just slightly smaller than the dimension of the card that I'm putting it on. So this happens to be just 1/8 of an inch smaller than 5.5 by 4 1/4. So 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. You see how it gives me a nice little border around there? That's so I don't have to worry about any of this adhesive overrunning onto the card. So once I have that first piece down, then I'm just going to pull the back and give myself a little bit to work with. And I adhere it just up into the corner. The stuff sticks. It sticks really well. So once it's down, it's not coming up. So I make sure that I get this first part in place. And I've got good alignment across the top, and then I can press down and get that little strip adhered. Now I can go ahead and pull this piece out of the back and just press and go, and I have a perfect result here. Okay, so we'll do the same thing with the next panel. I almost took my finger off. You see how sticky that was? And the same thing, this is cut slightly shorter than the 4 by 5 1/4 panel. And see how I didn't quite get it on there straight, but it's okay because it didn't overhang at all. And that's why I do that shortcut. So again, I'll just pull off a part of this. And this is where you want to make sure that your card is opening the right way and your panel is ready to go, and you know exactly how you want to line that up, because once this sticks, it's not coming up. And then bring it across. See, I didn't quite get it right, but that's not going to come up, so that's, I guess, just the beauty of handmade this time. So on my last 2 pieces here, I already have some foam adhesive on these guys, and I'll just pull that off and pop them right into place. And this one here, I am going to break the vertical plane here, and that's just to break that line. There's so many other lines going on that it gives you this little place for your eye to get drawn when it overhangs like that, and that's totally on purpose. And it looks really, really awesome. So 3 fantastic cards. I hope you enjoyed today's project. I've got one more for you tomorrow, so don't forget to leave your comments and fill out the form for all the giveaways. Thank you so much for joining me for this series, and until I see you tomorrow, happy crafting.